Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another edition of Drop In with Dave. My name's David Sandoval. You might know me as the author of the Green Food Bible. You might know me as the author of The Toxin That Came to Dinner, or even as one of the founders of Purium Products. But today, it's all about you and me. It's all about learning, and I'm going to be with you every single, day that I can be. I'm going to try to record as often as I can and upload one of these every day, Monday through Friday, because my hope is that by sharing what I've learned with you, your quality of life is going to be improved. My motto is I want your tomorrow to be better than your yesterday because you spent some time with me today. So, as you know, we are in our third of a series about macronutrients. We started with protein and carbohydrates, and we're going to get on to fats and fiber. Now, in talking about carbohydrates, I wanted to remind you that not all carbohydrates are created equal. The carbohydrates that we seek are those that are not going to spike our insulin levels, that are not going to create gout in our body, that are not going to, have any negative impact on our body, but only to feed our body nutrients and feed our body, these super slow burning or these super high quality carbohydrates that will break down into the glucose that we need to fuel our cells. But, one thing that's really misunderstood in the macronutrient category are fats. And so we've talked about protein, we've talked about carbohydrate, but we need to talk about fat because fat is very much misunderstood. There are some diets that say we should have very high fat. There are some diets that say we should have very low fat. And I'll tell you that the low fat diet has been a disaster for America. Since we've been advised to have a low fat diet and foods came out as fat free and low fat foods, the profile, our taste buds are attracted to two things, fat and sugar. And so when they couldn't put fat in foods, they substituted it with sweetness. And that's when the epidemic of diabetes and all of these other glucose related health challenges began to arise. The quality with fat isn't that we have fat, it's that we don't know the quality or the type of fat that we should be consuming. Our cells crave fat. We need fat. We even need cholesterol, despite everything that they have told us. And so, what I want to do is just not take a super deep dive, but I want to at least go a little past just the surface of understanding fats and oils and all of those things so that we could better serve our body. And so when we're talking about essential fats, these are the fats that our bodies must have. We're talking about omega-3, omega-6, omega-9, omega-18. These essential fatty acids are essential, and something is called essential because our body can't manufacture it. Our body cannot synthesize it. We need to give a raw material to the body so that it could actually use it. Now, essential fats like omega-6, omega-3, omega-9, omega-18, these are found in different types of plants and different types of animals. Now, omega-6 is the predominant fat that is found in animals, okay? And omega-6 is also found in a lot of nut oils as well. And omega-6 is the one that I think is building up far too much in our body. And that's why reducing your omega-6 to me is very critical, but increasing your omega-3 is equally as critical. And so when it comes to essential fatty acids, my rule is less 6 and more 3. Now, I'm going to teach you a little secret about essential fatty acids that you may not know. Omega-3s are the master essential fatty acid. If you're deficient in omega-18, but you have enough omega-3, your body will create omega-18 out of omega-3. If you're deficient in omega-9, then your body will create omega-9 out of omega-3. And it's very rare, but if for some crazy reason you became deficient in omega-6, Your body could create omega-6 out of omega-3 as well. But here's what your body can't do. It cannot create omega-6 out of 18. It cannot create omega-18 out of 6. It cannot create any of the other combinations. Omega-6 can't change, 18 can't change, either can 9. Only omega-3 can become these other fatty acids. So it is the master fatty acid, essential fatty acid. And so let's ask ourselves, where can we get omega-3 fatty acids? What are the best sources of those? Now, many of you know that probably the finest source is going to be from the ocean. Omega-3 fatty acids are oftentimes also called marine fatty acids because they most often come from fish like salmon or sardines or even mackerel. And so we know that you can get amazing omega-3s from different type of sea plants and different type of sea life, not only fish. For example, whether it be krill or some other forms of fish oil that might come from plants. Remember, krill are actually not a plant, they're a form of an animal. So krill oil is not that different than let's say, salmon oil in the fact that it's not fit for vegans. But if we're looking for a vegan source of omega-3s, we're going to talk about that. But first, let's finish talking about fish. If you're going to use fish as a source of your fatty acids, remember that farmed fish, okay, these sustainably raised, farmed, ethically raised fish, whatever they want to call it, those are not wild. And only wild fish have the quality of omega-3 fatty acids that we need. The farmed fish do not, absolutely do not. Not only that, but the pink color in salmon is also indicative that the salmon was able to eat astaxanthin in its wild life. And the more astaxanthin it's eaten, the deeper pink its flesh will be. They actually use food coloring in the farmed fish. They throw pellets of food that have food coloring in them in order to artificially color the flesh of salmon, so you believe that it is healthy for you when it's not. And so omega-3 fatty acids from salmon, from sardines, omega-3 fatty acids, yes, from salmon, sardines, and other fish like that are actually a really, really good idea. And if you're going to want these omega fatty acids from marine sources and you don't want to consume krill or salmon or sardines or something like that, then what I highly recommend is that you use spirulina. Spirulina is a beautiful and high quality source of omega-3 fatty acids, just like that comes from salmon. The only difference is it comes from a plant. And so if you're a vegan and you worry about fishes and their sustainability or whether they've eaten plastics in their lifetime, then you could really, really rely upon high quality omega-3 fatty acids from from spirulina. Now, other food sources like chia and flax seeds are plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids. Now, they're not as easy to convert and use by the body as spirulina or oils or fish fat from salmon might be, but they're still an excellent source as well. Now, I am looking to introduce a couple of really unique new plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids, so stay tuned for those as we get into that in the future. Now, let's talk about other plant sources of fats. Let's talk about oils, coconut oil, flaxseed oil, these different oils. Plant oils are notoriously fast to rancify. And here's the reason why. Let me explain this to you in a way that's really important, because I'm going to explain fats to you like margarine and coconut oil and these different things. So imagine that fat comes in 3 sizes. It comes in small, medium, and large. Or a better way to think about it is imagine you have a 3-car garage. You have a 3-car garage. And if there's 3 cars in that garage, it's saturated, okay? A saturated fat has 3 fat bonds, and that is a saturated fat. Now, if a fat has only one fat bond, then that's called mono, and that is very unstable. So imagine there's one car parked in the center of the garage, okay? And now oxygen could easily go in the left and the right, and this single fat molecule is going to oxidize very quickly. So corn oil, soybean oil, all of your oils that come, olive oil, these oils are all monounsaturated fats, meaning that they rancify very quickly, they oxidize very quickly, and they're unstable on the shelf. Now, what happened is they were trying to stabilize these oils. They had to throw away all this oil from corn, all this oil from soybeans, because they were selling corn meal and soybean meal. And that's when you squeeze the oil out. And they didn't want to throw the corn oil away. They didn't want to throw the soybean oil away. And so their scientists figured out something that they could do to keep it from oxidizing. You know, remember the 3-car garage with the car parked in the middle, the one that's a vegetable oil? Well, what they did is they parked hydrogen to the left, they parked hydrogen to the right, and that way no oxygen could get in. It's now a saturated fat in a way because it can't rancify. But here's the problem. Because they've attached this hydrogen to it, it's now considered a hydrogenated oil or a trans fat. It actually can cause cancer in your body. Well, about 50 or more years ago, they told everybody stop using butter, stop using coconut oil, and start using margarine. And margarine was was corn oil and canola oil and soybean oil that they had hydrogenated. And literally they sold you cancer causing fat that they were making money off of, and they told you not to have 2 fats that were actually really, really good for you. So that takes us away from the 3 cars in the garage and the 1 car in the garage. But did you know that there's some fats called medium chain triglycerides that actually just have 2 cars in the garage? So imagine a car to the left and a car to the right, and it's very easy for your body to put an enzyme in the middle, split those 2 apart, and create energy for the body. So medium chain triglycerides are the Goldilocks of fats. They're not too big, they're not too small, they're just right. And where do you find medium chain triglycerides? Well, you find them in coconut oil. And coconut oil is a fat that actually helps you burn fat. The funny thing is that the cattle ranchers saw the price of coconut oil going way down because nobody was buying it because everybody was told it made you fat, okay? Well, cattle ranchers need their cows to be fat, so they bought all this cheap coconut oil and they fed it to their cows because they were gonna make those cows fatter. Well, guess what happened? That's right, the cows got skinny. They got so skinny that they couldn't even sell them. Because of that, the price of beef went through the roof because nobody had any cows to sell. Supply and demand, a lot of demand, not a lot of supply. Now, after the ranchers learned their lesson, the next year there were a lot of cows to sell and the price of beef went way down, supply and demand working once again. So when I was studying economics and I learned about the effect of coconut oil and how it affected the commodities market in such a profound way, I actually started studying coconut oil as a food that helped people lose fat. And about 25 years ago, I reintroduced coconut oil into the market as the fat that helps you lose fat, and it's become very popular in the market since then. So 3 sizes of fats. There's vegetable oil, that's got one, very unstable, that's been hydrogenated, which makes it cancerous. You've got animal fat that has cholesterol, which they said was bad, but actually isn't. Coconut oil has cholesterol as well. So now they're trying to say that coconut oil is bad, but it's not. I'm going to tell you about cholesterol, another type of fat. Cholesterol surrounds every cell in our body and protects us during cell division. Cholesterol surrounds the myelin sheath of our nerve endings and helps us to keep all of our flow going through our body, all of the transmissions going. Cholesterol is like a sponge. Cholesterol is like a sponge that you use in the sink. At first, it starts out really nice, but when you use it too much, you have to throw it away. Imagine chewing gum. You start out chewing gum, it's nice and juicy, and you could take it out of your mouth with your fingers and put it back in. But if you chew it for too long, if you take it out of your mouth, it actually sticks to your fingers. If you try to take it with your other fingers, it sticks to them. And the reason why is because it has lost its usefulness, and it now has actually just become sticky and needs to be disposed of. Well, the same thing happens with cholesterol. Cholesterol protects your body, it defends your body, and as our body exhales waste at the cellular level, as the mitochondria burns energy and gives off its mitochondrial exhaust, just like your car does, our cells each give off some exhaust when they burn energy, and that exhaust is absorbed by cholesterol, and that cholesterol eventually will get saturated and need to be eliminated, and that nasty old cholesterol could be got rid of by another type of food that's high in fat. When you have these gummy beta glucan type of fibers, they usually come in a food like flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed, or some other seed that actually has fat in it as well. So again, not all fats are created equal. And essential fats are really, really important. Omega-3s are the most important to get. Oils that you cook with. I personally prefer avocado oil. I like grapeseed oil, and I like coconut oil. Those are my 3 favorite oils to cook with. And again, stay tuned because I'm going to be introducing a new oil, just like I introduced coconut oil so many years ago. I'm going to be introducing a new oil. I can't reveal what it is. I'm going to be introducing a new source of omega-3s. I can't tell you what it is, but I will tell you this. I'll tell you why I'm introducing a new source of omega-3 fatty acids, because I found a source that has a combination of medium chain triglycerides, omega-3 fatty acids, and another type of fat that actually stimulates your hormones and causes your body to burn fat as well. So I'm going to be introducing a new oil and a new omega-3 fatty acid. But here's the key. Omega-3 fatty acids are going to be proven to be one of the most effective stem cell stimulators. Stem cells are these amazing regulators of your body, and we're learning that they could be activated by omega-3 fatty acids when our body has the proper level of those. So I'm going to be going big into finding the perfect source of omega-3 fatty acids until I find a better source. As I said, salmon, spirulina, and chia seeds, flax seeds, these are my current favorite sources. So moving on down the chain, talking about fats, talking about oils, we sort of need to talk also about fiber. You see, we talk about macronutrients is what I meant to say. Talking about fiber cannot be ignored. Protein, carbohydrates, and fat are typically considered the macronutrients. But do you know that without fiber on a daily basis, and a significant amount of fiber, that's why they're called macro. If you don't have a significant amount of fiber, then you're also going to be deficient in the way that your body is able to function. So when we talk about fiber, we have to recognize that there are 2 types of fiber. There are soluble and insoluble fibers. And soluble fibers are basically my favorite because they get into places that other fibers can't. But dietary fiber is the one that most of us know about. So before we get into that, I just want to remind you that you are listening to Drop In with Dave. My name is David Sandoval, and if you like the different things that we're talking about today, I want you to get my book, The Green Food Bible, because it's going to catch you up. If you read the Green Food Bible, it's going to get you into my philosophy. It's going to get you into some of the knowledge that I'm going to be teaching you here today, and all of this information that I'm sharing with you is also shared therein about essential fats, about protein, about fiber. And I also want to remind you, I'm not always going to be talking about nutrition. We're going to be talking about philosophy. We're going to be talking about life. But in these first few shows, I want to give a basis, of knowledge for you to build on. So as we talk about other subjects, one, hopefully we built some trust, covered the basics, and set that groundwork for growth into other areas. So we've tried to dig deep on protein, carbohydrates, and really, get you up to date on fats. And I want to remind you that trans fats are cancer causing. Trans fats are hydrogenated oils or partially hydrogenated oil. I don't quite understand that term, partially hydrogenated oil. It's almost like being, you can't be partially pregnant or partially sitting down. You're either sitting down or you're not. You're not partially hydrogenated. A hydrogenated oil is one that has those two hydrogen bonds. Now, if they use part oil that's not hydrogenated and part oil that is hydrogenated, it's not partially hydrogenated, you see? It may be part hydrogenated, but not partially. There's a big difference, and don't let them fool you. Now, when I did radio in New York City, I actually got together with many of the other radio show hosts, and we elicited a campaign to get trans fats banned from every restaurant in New York, and we succeeded. New York City still to this day is the only major city, the only city in the world that I know of that has actually banned the use of trans fats in restaurants. But there's another type of fat that's almost impossible to ban, and it is the fat in the deep fryer. So before we get past fats and into fiber, I need to tell you what fats not to take besides hydrogenated oil. You see, there are certain fats that we really need to avoid, and one of them is any fat that is used to fry a potato. What do I mean by this? The combination of high heat, oil, and potato starch create a toxic chemical called acrylamide. And every time we eat a French fry from a restaurant, every single time we endanger ourselves with the fact that they may have had that oven turned on, the oil turned up too high. They may have left those French fries in the oil too long, and there is acrylamide that is built up in our French fries. And so oftentimes I tell people, if you like French fries, try to get the baked ones. It's going to be really important, obviously, to think about that. If you worry about cancer, if you worry about fertility, if you worry about the quality of your skin, your digestion, all of these things, acne, etc., French fries, one of the most delicious and amazing, foods on the planet. There's nobody who doesn't love French fries, but they do come at a price, and we always need to be willing to modulate and to moderate. Moderate is to eat less. Modulate is to find another way. I personally believe that using things that aren't potatoes, or just not using the oil to fry them. You could bake your potatoes. You could bake your French fries. You could use maybe sweet potatoes or something like that instead of a regular white potato. But either way, I just want to warn you that the way that oils are used also could make them dangerous. They could self-hydrogenate. When an oil becomes heated to a certain extent, it can become a trans fat. When an oil combines with certain starches, it could create toxic chemicals. I just want you to be aware of that. So modulate your use of oils. Use fewer oils. Use more essential fatty acids. And you're going to be doing very, very good for your body. Now, as we get to the close of today's show, with just a few minutes left, we're just going to talk very quickly again about fiber. Now, the dietary fibers, as we begin to speak about a minute ago, the dietary fibers are really important. I call these the brushes and the brooms of your body. Why do I say brushes and brooms? Because they're shaped differently. Imagine eating broccoli or eating cabbage. Imagine eating a potato or eating a tomato. The fibers in each one of them is going to be different. On the tomato, you're going to have that skin. Okay, on the lettuce, you're going to have like a big net that's cast. On broccoli, it might be little sponges, little brushes, I mean. And so some of them are highly absorbent, and they're going to be like sponges. So every vegetable that you have, every fruit that you have is going to be loaded with fiber, and each of those fibers is going to be a different shape and a different quality and do a different impact on your body. And that's why it's important to have a wide variety of food and to chew your food very, very well. I want to talk very quickly about chewing your food, okay? We have just a few minutes left in today's show, and the fiber content is very important, but when you chew your food, you actually create the fibers by releasing the soluble portions and activating the portions that can work for your body. By chewing food, you activate enzymes that help the fibers to work as well. And so we have a lot of time. We're going to have another show after this. Anything I don't talk about is okay, but I've got to tell you a story about a man I met who was a prisoner in Dachau, a concentration camp, where they were given one piece of bread and one glass of water a day to eat, and almost everybody who was in his prison cell died. He and two other men looked extremely healthy, even though they just had one glass of water and one piece of bread a day. Now, what he taught me was that by chewing every kernel in his bread, by chewing his bread super slowly and letting the nutrients absorb underneath his tongue, chewing 57 to 100 times every single bite, actually caused those minuscule nutrients in that bread to maximize their impact on his body. And the other people ate their food very quickly. As soon as they got it, they woofed it down, hardly chewing it at all and getting almost no nutrients from it. So over 30% of digestion takes place during chewing, and the other 70% of digestion is activated because of chewing. And so when you fail to chew, you fail to get proper nutrients. And when you chew, you are crushing fibers. The crushing of fibers with your teeth is releasing the nutrients from those fibers as well. So again, soluble fibers are very good for controlling and reducing cholesterol, very good for getting rid of toxic waste in the body, very good at helping your body to rehydrate as well. Dietary fibers, these are like brushes, they're like brooms, they're pushing stuff in front of them like bulldozers, pushing the waste in front of it, constantly wiping down. And the soluble fibers are like the moisture and the water, and the dietary fibers are like the washcloths, and between them they're cleansing and pushing down. And so without proper fiber on a daily basis, then you're not going to control your blood level of cholesterol. You're not going to get rid of the toxic waste that could build up in your body and ultimately enter your body once again. Now we're going to get into colon health in a big way. Fiber we're just getting started. When I come back, I'm going to teach you about the most effective fiber for building gut health, and we're going to talk about that on our next show. Again, this is David Sandoval. This has been Drop In with Dave. We're going to do this as often as we can because I'm hoping your tomorrow will be better than your yesterday because we spent time together today.